Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this meeting of the Executive Cabinet Member, Planning, Housing and Highways. Let's start with the agenda. Let's start with item 3 first, Department of Place Financial Monitoring Report, Q1. Over to you, Jenna.
Okay, thank you. This is the Q1 finance report for the Directorate of Place, and it's for the whole of the Directorate of Place. The Directorate is projecting to overspend by £517,000 at the end of the year. There are two significant variances for this portfolio, and that's planning and highways. Key financial findings can be found on page 3, and service-specific findings can be found on page 17. 100% of the savings target for 23-24 has been approved and delivered now. As previously requested by members, in 6.2.3 we're providing information around indicative inflation factors. The Executive Cabinet member is asked to note the report and make approvals around the capital programme. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any question, Councillor Hayes?
Yes, thank you very much indeed, Executive Member. On the overspend, we know the difficulty that planning are in with their budgets. Can I just ask, the 600-odd thousand, is that mainly staffing costs? Because I know we're taking a lot of people in from agencies and it's paying a lot of money because we can't recruit our own, or is it costs awarded at appeals principally, or a roughly even split?
Thank you, Chair. I can help answer that question. Some of it is obviously the spend on agency staff up to present, and there is a requirement for some additional continuity of spend for agency staff, certainly for building control, whilst we work with all of the GMO authorities to find a solution to the building control side of things, and also we're working with the transformation team on how we can reduce costs in for the IT support side of things, as there is an agency worker there for that. We have been successful with securing staff for some of the posts, including the searches side of things, where we've had to have agency staff to keep that service progressing. In terms of costs awards, this is budgeted for, and at the moment we're not exceeding, because the one award that has been reported hasn't been put against the planning budget. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Any more question? So there's no question. So report noted and approved.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes. We're going back to item 1, monitoring of Executive Cabinet Member decision enclosed. Over to you, Susan.
Yeah, this is the monitoring report of decisions previously taken by the exec member. We've worked quite hard this time to try and consolidate it and get everything together that this portfolio now covers. Rachel and Dwayne have done that for me. So if anyone's got any questions, we're all happy to answer.
Councillor Hayes.
Sorry, I'm sorry to go in yet again. It's on the page 4, stroke page 5, about the Smithelsdean Road enforcement. I'm able to confirm the councillors will meet the funding, which is the first item there. But what we're waiting for is to see what the best scheme is, with an evaluation of the chicane against the Dragon's Teeth. Either both or one or the other. The councillors, I'm sure, will fund that.
Yeah. Sorry, Councillor Hayes. Is everybody else can hear Councillor Hayes?
Not very well, no. I think he said about the schemes that councillors are prepared to fund it. I think Dwayne can come in on that one.
Dwayne want to come on.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. But yes, so I did understand Councillor Hayes' question, and we still need to. I think there was a conversation, Councillor, around some additional traffic calming features in the middle, which we're still looking at the moment. So there was an agreement for the gateway, the gateway signage and the gateway Dragon's Teeth that was approved by ECM. But there was points raised at that ECM meeting about the opportunity to introduce some additional intervention further down the road around the school. So colleagues are still looking at that at the moment, and I will get some proposals and some options to the ward councillors as soon as possible.
Is it okay, Councillor Hayes? Yeah. Okay, thank you. So, okay, if there's no further question, report noted.
Yeah,
And
thank you.
let's move to item 2, which is housing financial monitoring report.
Yeah, I think that's Lisa. Lisa's going to
It
do
is.
that.
Yes, over to you,
Yes, it is.
Lisa.
Thank you, Chair. The report that you see have received is for the Q1 housing portfolio. We have found that there's a £53,000 movement at the end of the financial year to bring in a balanced budget. There's capital monies available of £141,000, and the reserves movement is projected to be 4.25 at the end of March, which is a decrease of in year 363,000. And this is expected. This is because there's quite a lot of the funding that comes through from grants that moves into one financial year to another. For this particular portfolio, there has been no strategic redirections for this year. And in table 2, you can see that the unders and overspends in there, in particular looking at the contingency budget, which is in the housing general miscellaneous, and there has been some increased traveller site expenditure, which sits in the accommodation services. And I'm quite happy, Chair, to take any questions or comments about this particular report.
Thank you. Any question on this? So there's no question.
Thank you, Chair.
So, yeah, no report noted and changes approved.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Let's move to the item 4, which is procurement of residential furniture. Is it Rachel, you doing this?
Karen's going to take this.
It's me, Chair.
All
Good
right.
morning.
Good
Hi.
morning.
So yeah, the procurement of furniture. The council's furnished tenancy service provides furniture to those tenants who are vulnerable, who require assistance with furniture to sustain their tenancies. This is on a kind of basis where we the client provides information on their income and expenditure to ensure that we're providing it to those people who cannot afford to buy essentials, bedding, flooring, that kind of items, microwaves, such like. The majority of residential social landlords, such as Bolton Home, provides properties which are unfurnished, which again puts our people of Bolton in a vulnerable position when they move in. We also provide some support to our temporary accommodation for clients who are seeking assistance due to homelessness. And the furniture remains the property of the council in those circumstances, which is reflected in our temporary accommodation budget. The council did undertake a tendering process in 1819 for the provision of furniture, and within the report you can see each of the lots, so you can see what is actually provided. And as I said, they're essential goods for supporting people when moving in. The total spend during 22-23 was 612,746. And the current contract for the provision of furniture expires on the 10th of November this year. As part of the council's local welfare provision, which was introduced in 2013, they also provide a range of household items. So as part of that funding stream, helps to support these furnished tenancies. And as you can see in section 3, the financial breakdown of what that looks like. in terms of consultation, the project team, when we were procuring it, have accounted for customer feedback on that and the quality and standards of items provided. The councils, it's a key part, the local welfare provision, it's a key part of our council's anti-poverty strategy, and also it is supporting those people who are within the cost of living crisis that we're seeing across the borough. So the recommendation for the exec cabinet member is to delegate authority to the Director of Adults, Communities and Integration to undertake a tender exercise for the provision of residential furniture contract for a period of 2 years, with the option to extend up to a further 12 months period, and to award the tender to the successful providers in accordance with the terms of the same and in consultation with the exec member to award, I should say, the tender to the successful providers. Authorise the borough solicitor to carry out all necessary legal formalities, and authorise the borough treasurer to carry out all necessary financial formalities.
Thank you, Councillor Haslam.
Thank you, Chair. There's a couple of points on this report or a proposal, and there seems to be some disparity between the spending. We've got the LWP figure that appears to have gone down by 10%, the budget for that this year. Conversely, the housing side has gone up by 40%. And for no apparent reason, I can't see the reason why one side of this budget has gone up so substantially, 40%, despite, and I googled this, furniture inflation of only 6.2%. So when we talk about traditional furnishings, wood tables, chairs, white goods and so on, microwaves, nationally the figure's only 6.2% inflation. Now, we need to be absolutely clear on this, and us councillors need to be clear on this, that the actual housing one is for a presumed temporary furnished accommodation and is not, and is part of the contract with the homeless person or person moving through homelessness. And the local welfare provision is something different. This is the means tested one where people apply because for that's, yeah, it's clear that I thought with the you were saying for the temporary furnished accommodation that people actually applied for that when it's in actual fact is part of the contract, I presume, the housing contract. Right, okay, we'll get back to the original point then. Can you advise why we've got such contrasting figures? Why the LWP, the local welfare provision, has gone down by 10%, but the housing has gone by 40%? Have we got a lot more homeless accommodation, temporary accommodation? Have we had a massive change in the number of turnover in this accommodation? Could you explain why there's been such an increase in that part, that element of the report, please? Through Chair, sorry, Chair.
No worries. Karen?
Yeah, so Councillor Haslam, there has been a change in the temporary accommodation in terms of reducing the amount of spend into hotels, and we've looked at increasing more permanent temporary accommodation, so that the spend is kind of coming down in those hotels because we haven't got the hotel accommodation in Bolton to provide that as well. So we're looking at different ways of saving money and having something more permanent. So that may account for some of that spend going up. In terms of the LWP, I'd need to get back on you in terms of that, because that doesn't sit within my budget. It sits under corporate finance with Phil Brimmer.
Thank you, Karen. That's very informative, and it's welcome news that we're actually moving people away from hotels and trying to source more temporary accommodation in traditional buildings rather than hotels. So thank you for that. I think there was another point, and it slipped me. I thought I'd written it down, but thank you very much for that. That was informative.
Someone else raised hand, but I can't see.
Councillor Walsh.
Councillor Wash.
Thank you. Ask in terms of the proposed, the current and tenderers, a lot of them seem to be CS North East Limited. It's a reason why we're going to cover this beyond Bolton, because I thought there was a commitment from the incoming party to a Bolton pound.
I didn't quite catch that.
I didn't catch that either.
I think Councillor Walsh said that you're going to contractors that are not necessarily within the Bolton area, and that there was a commitment for you to perhaps go stay local.
This was a part, Councillor Walsh, this was a part of the tender process that was taken in 1819. So going forward, as part of the re-tender, that will obviously be taken into consideration.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. If there's no more questions, so
I think Councillor Heslop's got his hand up again. Is that a different question, Councillor Heslop? Yeah.
No, it is a different question. It's the one I remembered, Chair.
Yeah.
Very sorry for that.
yes.
But what I'm interested in now, again, focusing on the LWP, and Karen, you may not be able to help this. You say that's not your expert, your field sort of thing. But I want to ensure that there's fairness and the council's getting good value for money, and also that residents are actually being provided with what they want rather than what was perceived as being needed. And I think it would be good if residents had some input into or have a choice as to the furniture that they get. So if it's a carpet, if it's a, if it's a bed or a table, that they're able to get that from perhaps in more competitively. Maybe from Argos or something like that. Is there anything within the system that facilitates the actual resident in getting the furniture that they want? These are under the local welfare provision, where we're facilitating some of the least well off with things like white goods and furnishings. So the question is, could they go elsewhere?
Again, I would need to get back to you because I'm not sure whether it's on a voucher basis scheme, so that potentially there is to go to kind of, as you say, Argos, but I would need to get back to you on that, Councillor Heslop. I can make that inquiry for you and email you with it.
If you would, please, because I think it's very important from the residents.
How it works.
Yeah,
yes,
value when the council gets value for money, and it's accommodating the system, and also importantly that the resident gets the goods that they actually would prefer within the constraints of a scheme. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Heslop. So there's no more question. I authorize the report.
Yeah, thank you.
Item 5, procurement of pavement sweepers. John, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Karam. I think actually my colleague John Gregory and Laurie Hunter are actually going to present this item. It's a bit of a joint piece which cuts across both our fleet management service and our environmental services. So not too sure, colleagues, who's going to kick us off.
If I go through the report and then maybe refer John where we've got transport specific questions, is that all right? So I'm Laurie Hunter. I'm head of environmental delivery. So normally I report to Councillor Sylvester's portfolio, but this equipment that we're requesting is purchased by the transport services, which fits within your portfolio and portfolio of this ECM, but they're used by my services environmental delivery. So which is why we've got the tag team between myself and John for this item. So essentially, this is part of our normal scheduled work. So we've got a smaller pavement sweeper, which you'll notice nipping around some of our pavements, particularly in the town centre, where they work early morning, and throughout the borough, there's a schedule of work that they undertake across the borough. We've got 6 of those. As I've said, transport purchases them, undertakes the procurement in partnership with the service. We normally spend roughly £155,000 per annum, and that's to purchase 6 pavement sweepers, and also it includes maintenance for pavement sweepers. They're quite an industrious bit of kit. Whilst they look relatively small, there's quite a bit of mechanism that goes on the inside with regards to ensuring that it's efficient where it is sweeping. So at the moment we're spending, as I've said, £155,000 per annum to lease and maintain externally. We don't necessarily have the expertise within the transport service to maintain the complex bit of kit. We are expecting an increase in costs based on the last procurement we undertook sort of 4 years ago. That is around sort of an extra £30,000. We think we can absorb that extra cost within the service and environmental delivery. So financially, we think we're solid on that front. We did look at so we're looking at going on an ESPO framework in procurement services for a 3-year plus 1 year potential extension. We did look at potentially, considering our climate change agenda, we did look at and approach the market for electric provision of pavement sweepers. What we found is at the moment, the technology isn't quite there. We did get them priced up. They're priced up at around 300,000 each. When you look at the service budget, we would need 1.2 million per year. Sorry, across the 4 years, which isn't necessarily within the budget that is allowable. Also, as I've said, we don't think the performance is quite there, is at par with the performance that we would get with the diesel machines that we currently use. So we are still continuing to look at the market. We are ensuring that we're always kind of in touch with our GMCA colleagues and colleagues nationally around provision of electric fleet. At this point in time, for these machines, we think leasing with maintenance is our best option for these machines. So essentially, we're looking for permission from this group to authorise procurement proceedings for a 3 + 1 year contract for 6 pavement sweepers.
Thank you. Any question on this? Councillor Hayes.
Yes, thank you, Executive Member. I'm homing in on paragraph 1.3, where it says there's currently no plans to reduce the service, and hopefully that will remain the case. But looking at the worst option, if we did have to reduce the service, would we pay the same amount, however much these machines were used and serviced? Would it reduce, or would we be stuck with the same amount?
What?
Well, I think, yeah, I can answer that one. I think once we've entered into a contract, so we'll have an agreement that we will need to abide by for 3+ years. So we would have to stay within that budget for 3 years. I guess the 4th year would be optional. We can decide as we approach the 3rd year whether or not we'd want to change how we offer this provision for that 4th year. Does that answer your question?
Yes, I think it does. I mean, there's. If I was the company leasing, I wouldn't want an arrangement whereby you could pay less if the service reduced, because everybody knows what's happening in local government at the moment. But I think that does answer the question. Thank you.
So, thank you, Councillor Hayes. We are not reducing the service, so we have no plan to do that.
Oh, dangerous comment, if I may say so. Very dangerous comment.
At the moment, we have no plan for that. No worries. Councillor John, Councillor Hazard, before you, I think John want to come on this.
I thank you, Chair, but I think you probably just made the same comment that I was going to make. I think it's a fair question within the context of the financial challenges that the authority faces, but there certainly aren't any plans or any reviews live at this moment in time, which would be centred on a reduction in the street cleansing infrastructure that we have in place. So just as to the extent that we can, Councillor Hayes, I wanted to just offer similar reassurance.
Delighted to hear it.
Thank you, John. Councillor Heslop. Councillor Heslop.
Sorry about that, Chair. Yes, going back a few years, funds were awarded, and I remember all these this apparatus across Victoria Square from the Cleaner Greener initiative. And I was wondering whether this particular equipment that needs replacing was previously funded from a central government grant. I know it's there in a lease, and whether if it wasn't, why wasn't the greener initiative taken up insofar as it was using electric technology if funded by the government? That's one point. Was it previously funded by the Cleaner Greener grant, or did it just come from internal resources? The second point I want to make is, and you'll probably come back and say it's probably similar to vehicles, license to cars or whatever, commercial vehicle leases. But to be honest, I think that 3 years is a very short period for this type of machinery, and perhaps industry's got it wrong. How can you create a vehicle in modern day that's only got a life expectancy of about 3 or 4 years? Or do these vehicles go back and get sort of like recycled and repaired and so on? That's the second question. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Laurie.
Yeah, so I'll answer the Cleaner Greener capital question first, if I may. The answer is no. These machines are purchased as part of our normal revenue budget. They're requirement for the service. It was the glutton machines that you see in town, the green and white things with the big tube. Those were the ones that were purchased as part of that Cleaner Greener budget. Just so that you're clear on what was funded at that time. The second question, it is a very good one, and it is one that I asked of our service managers as well. 3 to 4 years, if you think about your own car, it obviously lasts a heck of a lot longer than that. These machines they're quite intense industrial standard sort of machines, and 3 to 4 years is industry standard for them. And I know it does sound it does sound ludicrous, but because they are quite an intense machinery. At that point in time, they are scrap, so the contractor will scrap them. So it's a bit like when you drive your car. The way it was explained to me, which hopefully will help, the way is it's like driving your car at 100 miles an hour all the time, every time you drive it, because of the complex machinery within its because it's not just operating like a vehicle, it's operating brushes. It's also operating like a Hoover type system, which is containing the water within a reservoir. So there's quite a lot going on within that small machine. So yeah, 3 to 4 years is industry standard.
It's sad that they can't create a machine that's, I mean, what's that EU right to repair law where they should be able to provide parts to make sure that there's extra life in these. It's really sad that this is only that long.
It could be that because they do the providers, the market does the maintenance as well. It could be that they reuse parts where they can. So because they're doing repairs, they might just use those machines as part replacement where they feel they're okay. So I don't imagine that they would scrap it completely, but I would imagine that as a whole, the machine itself is only good for part swaps when they're doing any repairs across their portfolio.
Thank you very much for that, through Chair.
John,
thank you for that response.
John?
You're on mute, John. You're on mute.
You're on mute.
Thank you. Sorry, just a brief comment, really, and I think we touched on this actually at the recent place scrutiny. I think Laurie's absolutely right. They are used intensely, these vehicles, and I think the challenge that the service always has is trying to get that balance between reliability of service and sound financial management. And I couldn't agree more, Councillor Heslop, that the lifespan of these vehicles is disappointing. It also brings in the challenge in relation to alternative fuel technologies, because the window is so much smaller. Our ability to bring forward a robust business case to demonstrate suitable payback with a different type of technology becomes more challenged as well. So I think the industry will mature. I think we will see the emergence of more, shall we say, greener options. But I think, as indicated in the report, at this moment in time, the market isn't sufficiently mature enough in terms of alternative technologies. And I think the intensity of use just makes it very, very challenging. So I think the dilemma for the team is, do we continue to put sticky plasters over the vehicles that we have and try and extend the lifespan, or actually are we at that kind of optimum point now in the life cycle where actually from a reliability point of view, which I think probably is one of the most significant considerations for members, that we have to move into a performance exercise. But I do think that as I say, in time the market will mature. But as I say, right now I think we are where we are, so to speak. So I think procurement is the right option at this point in time. But thank you, Chair.
Thank you, John. Any more questions? So there's no more question. So I authorize the report.
Okay,
With
thank
this,
you.
yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
I think that concludes our meeting.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
Yes.
It
Thank
does.
you.
I'll stop the recording. Thank you very much.
Thank you everyone for attending.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members.